Thank you everybody for being this afternoon with us in the second Go Just seminar. I have the pleasure and the honor to host today, this afternoon, Valeria Siniscalchi.
Siniscalchi.
Siniscalchi, yes. Sorry, Valeria, excuse me about this. But it sounds rather Greek to me, but anyway. Valeria is a world leader in food studies. She is a full professor in the École Études des Sciences Sociales in France. She is an anthropologist focusing on food, anthropology of food, and also food activism. She has published widely in peer-reviewed journals and also in edited volumes on food activism, values of food, and issues about food access and the justice issues around food production and consumption of food. Her last book is on slow food. Is an anthropology, an anthropological, historical anthropological study of the slow food movement. It has published last year, and it is really a comprehensive study of the movement. And it's a great pleasure to host Valeria right after the publication of her book. And it is really an honor that Valeria will introduce us to this very nice and new world of slow food and the dynamics and the politics of slow food. Valeria, it's a pleasure and an honor, and I'm sure that I'm talking also on behalf of my co-organizers to have you as the speaker of the second Go Just seminar. The floor is on you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Stathis, for this invitation. And I start asking you I apologize for my English that is a mix with French and Italian. And so sorry if something should be not so clear. So don't hesitate to stop me if my pronunciation, my bad pronunciation is not so clear, and I can clarify things sure during the discussion that we will have at the end of my presentation. So I hope that what I have thought, what I planned to present you is sounds interesting for your research field. So anyway, what I would like the topic of my speaking today is around taste. Taste is one of the pillars of this object that I have studied, and Stathis has well introduced, that is slow food, the slow food movement. And I would like to start with a very short introduction about that. I don't know if everybody knows what slow food is, so it's maybe important to precise in which sense, in which way I have studied this object, and as an anthropologist, as you said. And after that, I will try to keep to put the attention to this particular aspect. It is the relation to taste, what they do with taste. So the first step of this presentation is what slow food is. And when I started to be interested in this object, I listened a lot of things. I came from Italy. I teach in France. In Italy, during the 90s and the beginning of 2000, slow food was already well known. Italy is the country where it has been created. So there was an image of what slow food is, what slow food was, because through the media and some event that this movement organized, people had an idea of what it is. So what I can hear was slow food is a political movement. No, slow food is an association of gourmet. Yes, slow food is a global network. Maybe it is a NGO, and other people say that yes, slow food moves a lot of money. So it's a sort of enterprise. So slow food seems to be a lot of things together. And this is partly true in the sense that this is a difficult phenomenon, difficult to understand. And what I feel still today is that there are now a lot of publications around slow food. A lot of them are based only on literature. So there is a sort of repetition of people that study some aspect of this movement only through what has been already published. And this produced a sort of fixed image that is really far from what slow food is when you start to do an ethnography inside the movement. And it was what I did. I started to study slow food in 2007, and my real ethnography inside the headquarters was started in 2009 until 2014. So it was a long fieldwork. I spent, putting together the month that I spent in the inner part of the movement. I was with them around for 3 years almost. So the main focus was the headquarters in Italy, but during this period I studied also some more peripheral part of this machine in France, in some region in Italy, more particularly in Sardinia, for example. But the main part was really in the headquarters, that is in the north region of the Piedmont in Italy. In the small town of Bra, where the association was created. And as you can see, I used both the term of movement, that is the title also of my book, and that one of association, because slow food is at the same time an association with due paying members, with status, with a political organization inside, with hierarchy, political function, and very, very hierarchical in some respect. At the same time, is perceived and leaders present slow food also as a political movement. So you can meet people who say that, yes, I am slow food, I feel myself slow food, but this doesn't mean that they have the membership of slow food. So this sort of approach to a lot of people have an idea of what probably slow food is, and can feel themselves near to that, because slow and food together, these two terms means something that is interesting for a lot of people. So the idea of a movement allow people to adhere to its philosophy also without becoming members. At the same time, Slow Food is also an organization who can organize, who can move money, as I said, and organize big events. Negotiating, the leader of Slow Food can negotiate with a large spectrum of political parties, political representatives, not only in Italy but also in other parts of the world. I think to the European political European Union representative, but also in the United States, for example, in other countries in Asia. So the leader of Slow Food are really well known and have links with a very large spectrum of people in different political arena. So at the same time, it is also a no-profit organization, because there are a lot of projects that are that people in slow food carry on and that are really similar to what the no-profit organization can do. And some part of the Italian structure, the Italian association, are very similar to an enterprise. So the part to organize big events, for example, one of them is the Salone del Gusto, that is a really enormous fair organized in the town of Turin, in the Piedmont. Is really it has a commercial dimension also, and also there is a part of the Italian organization that is in charge of the organization of these kind of events. They have a publishing house publishing not only publication for the members, but also books and reviews that have a large diffusion. And they have a foundation for biodiversity. It is also a part that is dedicated to project in the south of the world, most of over. They can invest and have project in this in the global south, if we use this term. And they have created 20 years ago a private university that is also a university that is recognized by the Italian Ministry of University and Education. So, as you can see, it's something really complex, really with different elements that are really different one from the other. And in the headquarters in Italy, where there is the location, the main location of slow food, according to the period during my fieldwork, there were between 130, 170 people, salary people working. So it's really a big machine in a certain sense. And this big machine, as I said, sure is something that is, that keep the attention, and there is a lot of literature about that. When I started to study inside the movement, I was the first anthropologist that they have accepted inside, and not paid by them. So it was something really, new in a certain sense. But we can go back to this ethnographic aspect later, maybe in the discussion. So it's a combination, slow food, of these aspects that I have listed now, and at the same time is, in my point of view, a militant machine, in the sense that a lot of aspects are militant, and most of over the commitment of people, because yes, there are a lot of salary people, a part of them with political position inside the association, and there are a lot of hundred of voluntary people. So some of them with political roles, and the most part of them that are only voluntary or member, and they are around 100,000 of people around the world. So it's also a big machine in terms of commitment of people and capacity, ability to keep and to keep people inside, and with also a big, I think, a big sense of commitment for a part of them, for people, for a great part of the leadership in Italy, for example. Slow food is their life. It's really something. It's not a job. You go back at home at 5 o'clock. It's really a commitment that also for people who has a salary from slow food, not all the people, but a great part of this salary world, slow food is more than a job. It's really something very, very important and involving their energy. Voilà. So this is what slow food this is not an absolute definition, because in my point of view, movement change all the time. So as a researcher, we have a big responsibility, because the objects as slow food produce an image of itself. They produce a lot of literature about itself. And at the same time, researchers sometimes can fix images of something that is repeated in the literature. And in reality, our object of analysis is already changing. It is not what we think that slow food today is not what it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So we need to consider this processual, this transformation of this kind of object that is very, something that is very important to consider, to keep in mind. And so slow food, and this is linked to what I want tell you about taste. Slow food, if we have a rapid, a very fast look at the history of slow food was created, was born, if we can use this expression, in the left political milieu, Italian political milieu of the 70s and 80s. People, the founders and leaders came from the left-wing political parties. They were militant, intellectual. They have been involved in local politics, in trade union movement, in cultural associations. So all people who came from other kind of involvement, engagement in the left side of the panorama, Italian political situation. And when slow food was created, it was a particular period, and I think that is really important to understand this configuration, the political configuration of Italy at the mid of the 1980s, because it was the period just after the years of lead, what we say, gli anni di piombo, the years of terrorism, political struggles. So people in Italy during the 80s, we were exhausted in a certain sense. And there was a sort of, politics was, okay, stop. For a lot of people, the 80s were the period of, okay, we don't think no more to politics and to hard period that we have had during the 70s and the starting of the 80s. And people who create slow food came from this milieu, from this political landscape, and at the same time they try to put to do politics in another way. They are not going out and okay, now we think to food because it's so different. Their way to think to food was political at the same time. Maybe they didn't express that in this way at that period, but they have an approach that was political and economic at the same time. They were very attentive also to the economic dimension of food. One of the examples is some scandal that arrived in Italy at that period in the 80s, as that one concerning wine that was the Piedmont wine with the I don't remember the name in English, sorry, with methanol. And a lot of people died because the wine was modified, chemically modified. And in occasion like that, people of what became later slow food were very active to keep the attention. They say the quality is also market. In a certain sense, we cannot have low level of quality because these produce disasters as death, and disaster as that one create problem in the market of wine. Nobody wanted to buy Italian wine at that period because it was considered so dangerous for some period. So they had an attention not really to tradition and food tradition, and more in a pragmatic way, yes, to local cuisine, to local products, but in a very political, pragmatic and economic, with a political and economic approach. And so what they did was they didn't abandon their political engagement, involvement, but they tried to translate that into some kind of innovative forms. That were very innovative at that period. In the years later, it was less innovative what they did. At the beginning was really something new because they tried to food, to democratize food and the attention of food, and also in the landscape of the left parties in Italy, they were attentive to the rural. That was not the main problem for the Communist Party, for example. It was more interested in industrial and proletarian classes, and they said, no, we can look at rural in a leftist way, something like that. Another element that is interesting is that they joke with that, in the sense that the pleasure of joke was very important, is still very important. And this is something that is, I think, one of the elements that are not so easy to understand from outside this world, in the sense they mix militant dimension, very politically engaged, and a lot of irony and joke around that. And also all the vocabulary they elaborate is something completely, some respect, very, very, fantastic, crazy, and with a lot of double, triple sense. It is really difficult to translate. And when they started they had in mind, when I say they, I think that the leader, the founders, they had in mind an international association. And so this internationalization of the association produced also a simplification of some of the elaborate, language, vocabulary, thinking, because otherwise it was absolutely not possible to understand from other countries. And so in all of the communication, I observe a sort of simplification sometimes of their document, manifesto, and things that that resume their philosophy, their approach. Anyway, food occupied an important place since the beginning, and not only food, but conviviality and the pleasure of eating, the pleasure of drinking together. So doing politics and drinking and eating, a mix of very heterogeneous elements. And for example, the manifesto that they published, they elaborate and published a first manifesto in 1987. That was published in the Gambero Rosso, that was a supplement of the communist independent newspaper Il Manifesto, a newspaper, Italian newspaper. And in this manifesto, it was the manifesto of slow food movement for the defense of the right to pleasure. So the right to pleasure, not the defense of good food and so on. In this text, the first one that has been translated later and modified, simplified, that the first one, it's really interesting in this sense, because there are a lot of terms as material culture, pleasure, difficult to translate, but anyway, they use really terminology that is, I am looking for some example. For example, they use the expression like slow mastication, recuperation of time, organization of pleasure, and so on. So it's not simply food, it's something more articulate. So this manifesto is the first of a lot of other manifesto. The manifesto is the main form through which they diffuse their main ideas. For example, to give you only some example, there is Dimitri who asked to say something.
We can take questions at the end, I think. That's better. That's my feeling.
Okay.
But there is something that is not clear, please.
It's not something clear. You can raise it now, Dimitris.
Yes. I think I observed something ambiguous here concerning the terminology you said. Could you please repeat the way they use their terms as an organization?
The term in the manifesto?
You said something about terminology.
Yes, I said that they elaborate a very original vocabulary with expression terms, double signification, and a lot of joke in that, a lot of joke. And for example, this first manifesto that was a sort of, public. It's the moment in which, through an Italian well-known newspaper, they published the main issue of their philosophy. It was really the beginning, but they use terms as slow mastication, for example, recuperation of time. They speak about the struggle to create a center of organization of pleasure. It's a real very not easy to translate for me, but the idea, the main idea of this manifesto and of other position that they had during the time is to the defense, the struggle against industrialization, some aspect of the industrialization. Sure, the agro industry became one of the enemies, but also all the way of in which fast life, it's not fast food. Yes, fast food is one of the elements, but it's most of over fast life and a sort of industrialization dehumanize people. A sort of production of homologation and in which people live their specificity, that is a human specificity, and conviviality, commensality, and drinking and eating together, taking time, is something that allow people in this text to recuperate, to take their not only to take care, but to have their what is the term? To keep yes, to keep. Oh, sorry.
En français, je te traduis.
Curate, no.
Retain.
Also, en français aussi, c'est difficile. Attends.
In italiano.
Attends. Avoir la main sur quelque chose. Voilà, c'est to take.
Having hold on something.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So this is one of the main objective of their position, of the creation of their movement. So and what I would like to say is that all this is really situated in the Italian culture of that time, the Italian political culture of that time, and the intellectual and critical position of the left in Italy. well, so I cannot develop that now. But anyway, to go to the question of taste, since the creation of the association in the mid of the 80s, taste has been one of the pillars, one of the elements that are at the heart of their action, their philosophy, their the event they organize. And when I started to be interested in this question of taste, I had the impression that during the history, people in slow food have had two kinds of approach to taste. At the beginning, something more inclusive, and that the more in the contemporary time, more exclusive, maybe. And going through this question of taste, I changed my opinion. And in my point of view, these two elements, the exclusion and inclusion, are all both they coexist in the practice and idea around taste, in the sense that taste for them is at the same time something who allows them to include people, to include not only in the association, but to include in their philosophy, in their position, to allow people to adhere to their political position, and also something that is used inside the movement to exclude, to create hierarchy, to operate distinction between the different level of this really hierarchical and complex organization. So to be a little bit more clear through some example, in one of the first publications after the manifesto that I evoked earlier, they have published, as I said, a lot of text, a lot of journal articles, books, and so on. And in one of these publications, that is a sort of dictionary, slow food dictionary, they extend the manifesto perspective, and they define taste as the recognition of flavors expanded to the rituals of the table, going from the artistic and intellectual heritage of a civilization. And so taste is something that allows them to link, to create link between the table, the practice of the table, and the knowledge. So it's really something that is taste is linked to the knowledge who is transmitted from one generation to the other, and at the same time it's something that can create bridge and links more largely between people. And food needs to be democratic in their point of view, not something that is exclusive, but no, democratic. Also, if in the real action it is not all the time democratic, but in the theoretical and the philosophical perspective, it's more depth. And so this idea of this defense of the pleasure of the table, the rediscovery of taste, of regional cooking, is really the main motor of slow food diffusion in Italy, in different Italian regions, but also in other countries of the world. And in Italy, most of all, for example, at the beginning of the association, restaurant and the restaurateur, the chef, the restaurant, often became ambassadors of slow food. Some of them at the beginning became the leader of local groups. So this idea to go through restaurants, small restaurant, familiar restaurant became places for the diffusion of slow food, and also places where members can meet. Because these places were also often the place where meetings were organized, and also collective tasting. One of the main events that members of the food organize locally are tasting session, dinner with some kind of tasting, wine, but also olive oil, cheese, and so on. And so these kind of event, the testing event, served to enlarge the circle of members in a very convivial way. You know, a political association who is doing membership can, you know, keep a signature during some kind of manifestation. They do that through food, through this testing event. It is a different way to keep people inside. So sharing food, sharing wine. And this testing session transformed testing in really something collective. And at the end of the event, this event, were open also to new members. And at the end, participants are invited, were and are still now invited to become member. So you can go to participate to one of these events, also if you're not a member, but at the end you are invited to become a member, and a lot of people do that, because after that the events these events are also a sort of occasion to meet friends for people who are still members. They are the occasion to meet friends, to share, to feel themselves member of this family of slow food. So it's something that allows them to include it, at the same time to reconfirm the belonging to this big family of slow food. And also the tasting is used also in some kind, I cannot detail, but in some kind of events that are organized by the headquarters nationally. For example, a tasting of olive oils that is organized. I'm sorry for this noise. Olive oil tasting were organized at the same time in all the region, and the coordinator are in the headquarters. And a sort of, collective big national testing session organized in several places at the same time, in which people are connected not by internet but by telephone. They taste and they communicate the hierarchy of olive oils and so on. This is a sort of, explain more if you want, but this is only a rapid example to tell you that tasting is really a means to create conviviality, to create sharing practices, tasting practices, and at the same time promoting slow food philosophy. And during this tasting session, tasting games, tasting what do you want, they inform members also of new issues, new political issues, and they, in a certain sense, in my point of view, they transform members, because one of the objectives of taste of this test session is education. They create preference, they educate taste of their members, because members became familiar with some taste. I am thinking, for example, to some that are not so usual, with a very strong taste, for example, not the common, people are not so they don't use to eat this kind of cheese. And this tasting session allowed them to understand, other taste, and through taste, the people, members, start to appreciate the products that are not so, whom they are not so familiar. So the objective and ambition of slow food have evolved over the time, and they start with this idea of conviviality, taking time, and so on, and they transform the association more and more in a political movement, in the sense that they push members to become more and more concerned with the production problem, production process. Member needs to support the producer, small producer, and so on. So the political engagement, the interest in environmental issue became more and more strong inside the movement. So people today, members today, cannot only drink wine. They need to be more and more concerned with production, environmental question, issue, and also things that are not so immediately linked to food. For example, some of the battles, the struggle in which they are involved are a struggle, for example, against the nuclear power or the privatization of water, you know, things that are very not immediately linked to food. But during the time, members need to be more and more concerned for the living and the working condition of producers. This is another important point. And the taste seems became something that has also a moral characterization, in the sense that they use an expression that is good, clean, and fair to define what is the main issue of the movement. Good refers to the organoleptic quality of food, clean to the environmental question, to a production that is which respect the environment, animals, and so on, and fair is most of all used in the sense of social justice and attention to the condition of workers, producers, and so on. And in the more recent period, good food means also a food that is morally good, because it is produced with respect for the environment, for the animals, for the people. So consuming these good products means also to consume morally good products that are respectful for the environment, but also for the work of producers. And consuming these kind of products means also to help producers to make a living from their work. And so this idea of good food means also accessibility. Good food must be accessible to all, and at the same time workers need to have good condition of work, so they need to have a fair remuneration, just price, and so on. So in this sense, in the recent years, the movement philosophy and action have evolved toward the redefinition of the limits of human action and the redefinition of the morality of economy. So good, clean, and fair are also the parameters of a moral economy that is conceived as a sort of alternative to the neoliberalism, free market capitalism, and a sort of reform of it. And so the defense of local economies is aimed at creating food communities that are considered as a sort of ideal place which express this moral dimension of production and consumption of food. So taste is still now is a way of expressing political commitment, a way to involve new members inside the movement, but it's also a way to becoming a moral tool. Taste create boundaries, create frontiers, and create exclusion too. And one of the exclusion is that of industrial or morally bad food, bad between to exclude producers that don't do good work, to exclude also people that are not able to recognize good food. So slow food members are educated to that, but people were not able to recognize as a sort of, bad judgment, also in moral terms. Well, I stop here because I see that time is going on.
Thank you so much,
Didn't
Valeria.
stop me.
But it was fascinating. That's why I didn't want to stop you. Thank you so much for this excellent talk. And now we have some time for questions from the audience. One of the students, Dimitris Balis. Dimitris, once more. So, Dimitris, the floor is to you.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Efstathiou. To start with, Miss, your oral presentation was splendid, and thanks a lot for it. My question was having to do with this moral phrase used by the SF members, slow food members. You said good, clear, and the last word?
Fair.
Fair. Okay. I'm not sure if I understood well the usage of this phrase. What was the moral purpose of this phrase's usage? Could you please be more elaborated to it?
Yes. So good, clean, and fair, they are not only three terms that are on the same level. They can be analyzed also, and it's something that they do too, as a sort of chronology of the change of the movement, in the sense that in the first time they were more interested in good food. After that, they started to think to taste and what is good or not good as something that is relative. My preferences are not your preference, probably, because we are all in different social, cultural, and economic contexts. So the taste became also something relative in this sense. And during the 90s, they start to be involved with environmental issues. Environment arrived late, not in the beginning, but later during the 90s. And during the beginning of 2000, so in the new millennium, the attention to producers became more and more important. And this attention was not only in terms of we need to be careful with producers, it was also in the sense of including producers inside the movement. And one of the objectives was to change the characterization of slow food, so to become less a consumer movement and more a movement to links producers and consumers, and also to the problems of production of small economies, working condition became more and more important. So their idea is that you cannot drink wine without thinking to how, where, and who produce this wine, and in which condition the wine is produced. Wine maybe is not a good example, but for example, tomatoes. In Italy, the south of Italy is a place where the work in agriculture is made by people coming from the more south countries, and in working in conditions that are not so fair in a lot of situations. So this is one example that we cannot look only to food. We need to consider what is around food, and producers are inside. So they use the term fair in the sense of attention, to put the attention to a sort of social justice for producers, and you cannot pay tomato to less, because this means that someone in the production chain is exploited. Yes.
Thank you, Valeria. We have one question in the chat from one of the students who is writing that why do they exclude people who are not able to understand good food? So practically why they place barriers when they are trying to democratize in the same time food. why they are in need to build territory. Why?
They don't really exclude. There is not a barrier. You know, you don't know, so you are here, and you are good, you are bad. I can give you an example to be more clear. When I observed, for example, some training that were organized for the new leader of the local group of slow food in Italy, for example. So people who were just elected are leader of the local group, the local chapter. They were people involved in the movement, but the headquarters organized training for them. And in one of these training, they organized taste sessions. Because a good leader has to be really concerned and understand what taste is. And I remember that this session was in this session there were people who became leader are not necessarily expert in food, or they need to become to learn, to educate also themselves, to be able to educate people in their chapter, in the group, through the different events. And I remember the stress of one of these leaders who was near to me when they organized a tasting without looking what you were tasting, blended tasting,
blind tasting.
Yeah. Blind test, yes. And the people, the organizer of this tasting session explained these in our in this testing session we will eat, for example, three different cheese. One is an industrial cheese, the other is cheese that is done with raw milk, it is very well done, blah blah blah. So he explained the history of one of the three without saying what is the cheese made by a small producer with raw milk and what is the industrial one. And after that, he said, okay, now you taste, and now you tell me what is that, what is the industrial one, what is the... And so this creates a sort of stress, because if you say, okay, this is the artisanal cheese, and you are wrong because this is the industrial one, you are not excluded, sure, but there is a sort of stress. There was a sort of stress for some of them because, oh my God, if I do a mistake, and so people are pushed to be informed, to inform themselves, and there is a sort of a spectative after that for people. So you are not bad if you bad with beating. If you don't know, you can ameliorate, you can be educated. This is the idea. But producers, this is most of all for producers, maybe producers who do things badly in a moral sense, and also in concerning the environmental, the way of production, and so on. They are, also morally bad. Not sure if it's so clear.
Thank you. Sophia, please.
Hi, Valeria. Thank you so much for your exposition. It's really fascinating movement, and great to hear your close experiences with them. I had a few questions. I think 3 questions. My first question was about animals and animal ethics, and whether or how this comes into good or fair food. My second question was on whether you notice a change in this narrative of slow food and what is good food with increasing talk about sustainability, because of course in the 80s when this movement was born, this was not really a focus. And so I was wondering how this concept of slowness, became, I mean, I imagine became more about regeneration and like maybe also smaller scale, or so is it slower also smaller? So with sustainability, so I was wondering a little bit about these shifts in the narrative, given your sort of long experience with the movement, also because Stathis and their work have also we've been studying Greece, I guess, so it's interesting to hear something about that. And my last question was on this concept of clean food. For me, I'm currently revising this paper on Nazi concepts of purity and naturalness, and so yeah, so when I see clean food, I get a little bit scared about what that means. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about how that was conceived and is conceived now as well. Thank you so much. Sorry, I hope it's not way too much. This is just very interesting talk.
I try to answer to your question. Thank you very much. What I have not tell you at the end of my presentation is that this more utopian dimension of food taste is really similar in some part. I don't want to generalize, but there are some proximity with the message of the Pope Francesco, that is someone near to the leader, the main leader, recognized leader of slow food. So they have recently written things together, and the leader of slow food has done published the introduction, the preface of one of the encyclical of the Pope Francesco, Laudato Si. So this proximity contribute, that is not the proximity of all the members. I am speaking about the leader, the main leader and visible person in Italy and the international arena, in the International Association of Slow Food. But these proximities, I think, that contribute to reinforce the moral dimension of this part of the message. That is so. There are proximity, and the Pope Francesco comes from Argentina, but his family comes not so far from the town of Bra, where slow food is created, and where is headquartered. This doesn't mean nothing. It's only anecdotal, but there is this proximity that we have to consider. So going to clean, sure, good, clean and fair has also some.
Sorry, but this related to the question of animal ethics, or?
No, I was thinking to the word clean.
Clean, okay.
Also to this expression good, clean and fair, good and fair. There are some, it sounds not so far from Catholic messages, and clean is a term that, in my point of view, is very useful and very problematic at the same time. And it was very interesting for me to observe some people from slow food coming in France, and they tried to meet people that were involved in some kind of AMAP, in the Association for the Maintain of Peasant Agriculture, that organize in France distribution of vegetables, linking consumer and producer directly, and so on. And the people here in this association, French association, in which the production is organic production, say to the Italian people, but what do you mean with clean? What is clean? And clean was sort of evidence for Italian people, saying that clean is better than organic, in the sense that you are not submitted to not control to certification that are also used for industrial production. Clean means really that you have trust in people who produce with an attention for environment and also for animals. And I answer also to your first question. Animal conditions are included in this term clean. Clean doesn't mean clean in the sense of, you know, of hygiene, but it's clean in the sense of attention to biodiversity, attention to the to reduce chemical pesticide, and to pay attention to animals condition and sustainability. Sure, it was not a word in their vocabulary at the beginning. The idea of slow, yes, there is something linked to small, in the sense that also they, for example, when they try to discover a small restaurant, they use the term osteria. Osteria in Italian is as trattorias, that are small restaurants that are with not a lot of salary people, most of over a family organizing that, and also with price that are not so high. So this idea of small is also in their attention to the restaurant that I evoked at the beginning of my presentation. And also when they start to have a position of defense of local economy, they have in mind small local economy, small producer, small, there is something like that. At the same time, they don't refuse the globalization, so they invent expression also to include the what they consider the positive side of globalization. So small but linked to the rest of the world. And yes, slowness.
I'm working with some artists, and they're using the term glocal.
Yeah.
Local. Global and local together. Global.
Yeah. This idea of they use often this expression. It is sometimes it's thinking local and acting global, or thinking global and acting local. So they move from one to the other. But for example, I go back to clean. The attention to organic production arrived late. It was not something that was really considered at the beginning. They didn't really speak about organic agriculture, organic production. Also, if clean means, in their point of view, more than organic, but it was not. They were not so comfortable with the idea of certification. Organic agriculture, that is in Italy also an industrial organic agriculture, not only so. And then another thing, I was thinking, for example, question concerning health, human health, but also animals, and also arrived very late. This was not at all a term that was used at the beginning. And in terms also of shifting vocabulary, the idea of food that is, this is linked to the previous question, the idea of democratized food, the just price, for example, the price that at the beginning was just a price for the producers, to allow producers to live of their work. And the idea to pay attention to the price for consumers arrived later. So this is also a moving vocabulary that is the reflect of the moving philosophy also.
Thank you, Valeria. Are there any other questions from the audience? Vasiliki, yes, please. Vasiliki Karadzavelou, who is a PhD student in the Go Just project. So, Vasiliki.
Hello.
Hello.
I would also like to thank you for your contribution today. I would like to ask something about the certification process. As first of all, I would like to remark that in Greece, slow food movement is not very popular. I think just last year, the national, let's say, assembly was established, so it's not very popular, but I guess it will be growing in the following years. But I would like to ask about the certification. As you mentioned earlier, let's say the organic certifications are not taken into account really significantly, or at least they were overlooked for in the very first stages. However, nowadays the movement is accrediting, I guess, certifications for both restaurants and food products. And I would like to ask what's the, let's say, the manual that they are following in order to create, let's say, a standard which is followed by every restaurant or every producer, so he can be accredited as a slow food producer or a slow food restaurant. Do they have a standardized procedure that they follow, or is it very localized and solely linked to the, let's say, reviewers of its paradigm? That's my main question.
Thank you. Thank you. This allows me to try to explain more something that I have not said before. Slow food is a big movement, and it has there is a headquarter where a lot of ideas are produced and projects and so on. One of the main problem of slow food is that one of translation, in the sense that it is they need to expand the movement, and at the same time they need to adapt that in different location, and the people who adhere to movement comes from very, very different background, and so the local declination of the movement are very, very, very different from one country to the others, but also inside the same country there are a lot of difference between the local groups. In France, for example, where the movement never developed, there are real different characterization of the groups. Some of them are more interested in tasting wine, and others are more militant and involved with local producers. So this is a first element that is important to when I speak slow food, I speak most of over what I have observed during my field work, and it is based most of over in Italy and in France, but the main research is in Italy. Also, if I have exchanged and discussed and traveled with them, so meeting United States responsible leaders, German, Spanish, and so on. Another element is that what they do with restaurant, and I am still speaking of what they do in Italy and what they would like that in other countries people do, is not to certificate restaurant, for example. There are not, it doesn't exist slow food restaurants. What they do is that they publish books in which they members, this is what it happened in Italy, for example. Members can tell to the publish house who organize the publication of this guide, okay, here there is something interesting, please come and see. And there are people who organize visit in the osterie, trattorie, small restaurant, and if a restaurant has a certain number of elements, but elements, it doesn't mean a standardization of the restaurant. It is more in the sense of they need to use local food, pay attention to some things. They don't need to cook traditional dishes, but it's more an attention for the local production, that everything, products can arrive also from other countries. It's sure, because but an attention to that, the price, the kind of organization of the restaurant, but it doesn't mean that the restaurant who can enter in this guide, in these books edited by Slow Food, are all the same. It's absolutely not that. So they don't things, in my point of view, in terms of standard and certification, but there are some limits. For example, a good restaurant who became more and more expensive, maybe with some Michelin stars and so on, it cannot be in this kind of books. It can be it can be interesting for other reasons, but it has no more the characteristic of a small familiar restaurant that is accessible because the prices are not so expensive and so on. So I don't know if I answered to your question, but there is something different concerning products, because they have action of labelization of products, but this is another problem, and I think that I need another 1 hour to explain what they do with the labelization. But anyway, also in this field, there are some elements that I cannot consider that, I don't consider that as really standard in the sense of homologation and
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Valeria. We went beyond what we expected to be the finishing time. So I think that this is due to the great interest that the talk triggered. I had and I have still many questions, but I think that it would be better just to stop here. Thank you so much for such a fascinating talk. We are really grateful, and we look forward for hearing more research from you about slow food, and this has been fascinating, really fascinating. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for being with us. We are really grateful, Valeria. Thank you.
Thank you for your invitation and for this exchange. I'm really sorry for my...
No, it was really, believe me, it was excellent. Believe me. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
afternoon, evening, and see you in the third Go Just seminar. Bye.
Okay.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much, Valeria.
Everybody. Thank you to you. Thank you, and see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.